less than an hour from the opening bell on Wall Street, the market's opening for the first time since President Trump was hospitalized for coronavirus. So let's get to CNN's chief business correspondent Christine Romans and CNN anchor and correspondent Julia Chatterley. Romans, the market's looking up a little bit. It does seem, as we sit here this morning, as if they've digested this enormous amount of news and upheaval.
You sound like a stock market reporter, John, because that's exactly
I sat next to you for 4 years. Rubbed off. Talk about contagious.
Surprising stability in global markets, and a couple of reasons here. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty injected into things because of the president's health, but it changes the story from a contested election, which is what the markets really feared last week, to now monitoring the president's recovery and talking about whether this injects potentially new energy into talks of stimulus, new stimulus, coronavirus stimulus. So the conversation has shifted from a contested election to the president's health. And there was a weekend here, a weekend for investors and global markets to really see what was happening. And honestly, to see that COVID joyride that people are so up in arms about, that did show a president who was ambulatory, a president who was smiling. Well, we don't know if he was smiling, he was behind a mask, but waving. And that put a little bit of, I think, a little bit of pause into some of the worries over the weekend.
Yeah, I think you're right, Julia. What's your impression of that? That the market believes that President Trump's health is on the upswing, though we don't have any real concrete information.
Yeah, presidential COVID watch. Welcome to that for the next week. I would agree. I think stocks have stabilized as we believe that the president's health has stabilized. But actually, I agree with what Christine was saying about financial aid and stimulus hopes. I mean, one investor said to me over the weekend, for the Republican Party, this is COVID carnage. And obviously, we wish everybody well, but does the fact that we're seeing COVID carnage in the Republican Party make them more amenable to agreeing to further financial aid? And in the end, is the $2.2 trillion worth of stimulus going to be the price the president and the Republicans are willing to pay in order to boost their re-election chances, quite frankly? And I think that's part of some of the optimism and the stabilization that you're seeing feeding into our stock markets here.
I do think it's really interesting because what both of you seem to be saying is what matters here is the stimulus. Everything else is sort of a little bit of theater around it, including a Friday when we found out that Joe Biden had tested negative. There was a spike in the market. The market appeared to jump when it heard that Biden was negative, but at that same time, there was also news that a stimulus might be more likely. I also think that the markets are watching Mike Pence. Every time he tests negative, that may also help them because Christine Romans, they just, A, they want the stimulus, and B, they want things to be as smooth as they can for 2019.
And, you've just rattled off a bunch of things that could go wrong or could change. So anything could happen this week, honestly. I mean, Julia's right. COVID watch, that is exactly what this is here. We'll be watching every single headline about all of these top players. And I think that what's really important about the stimulus is just about every thinking head thinks you need more money soon in the system. We're going to see an October jobs report that could be job losses again heading into that. And that number will come out after the election. We know that jobs growth waned in the month and slowing down pretty quickly here. We know millions of people are still out of work. This is a jobs crisis in this country still. So even as we're talking day to day about what the president's, oxygen saturation is and all this stuff, the markets want to see more money to help real people before this thing turns ugly in the fall.
Yeah, stock markets don't need more stimulus. The economy does.
Yes.
Great points. Julia, Christine, thank you both very much. Great to see you. All right, we are about to be joined